Good afternoon, and good afternoon. Seem to be up very much. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting. All right, if we could have you take your seats, please. Yo! If we could all please settle down.
I think it's fine.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting, October 18th, 4 p.m. What we're going to do is I'm going to have a motion to, since we have some the Park and Rec, a couple of people from Park and Rec that want to make a presentation. We thought we'd have them speak after we do the minutes. And then, so we'd like a motion for that. We also might have the selectmen consider having the public comment portion of the agenda be advanced from toward the end of the agenda to after the Park and Rec. So we can consider that, since probably people would like to make a statement if they wish and then get on with their business. Otherwise, it'll probably be an hour or so before we get to the public comment. So, does the Selectmen have any thoughts on that?
Move them up.
I would like to make a motion at some point to maybe before the public speaks, because I have a feeling I think my left are here. I'd like to make a motion maybe after we do the minutes, okay, with the selectmen, to request a motion to put the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis on the agenda.
We're gonna do the minutes, and then I think we want the next thing we could do would be to put public comment up. There's nothing for the resolution as such.
My point is, I think a lot of people are here to discuss that, so it seems to me it would make sense to put that on the agenda for the selectmen.
I guess,
Can we?
say again?
We can't put it on the agenda, can we?
Well, you can vote to put it on, but there are some seats over in this section. If you all want to come in and get a seat, I don't know why this thing, you know. Can you ask them to use their mic? All right, so I think the first thing we want to do is to obtain a motion to have Park and Rec follow the minutes. Let's do that at least.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor of moving Park and Rec after the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's do that, and when we get past that, then we can be more explicit in what we're going to do next. All right. So the item to come next will be the minutes of October the 4th, which have been distributed. May I have a motion to consider the minutes for October the 4th?
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Do we have comments on the minutes?
Yeah, I had some comments. It looks like this set of minutes was updated since the draft set for the unofficial set went up on the website. I thank whoever managed that. Appreciate it. Under under the Ames open space discussion, which I guess would be considered page 2 of mine. Under discussion, it says Selectman Noel talked about the abrasive behavior of the Board of Finance chair during the Board of Finance meeting. I would like to add toward the open space commission officials, and she regrets not saying anything at the time. The next sentence, the Board of Finance chair took the open space commission to task. The Board of Finance chair, I'm not sure was explicit. He was basically implying that the Board of Selectmen also should have informed the Board of Finance about the potential purchase. So I would just add that to make that more accurate. The Board of Finance chair took the Board of Selectmen and the Open Space Commission to task.
Took the what now? Board of Selectmen, you said?
Mm-hmm. He was sort of directing his comments to you, Tim, that day, and I just think that's more appropriate to mention that. Then under the Tanamaha Landing, the first, where the paragraph ends, she asked that the town put something in writing. Basically what I asked for, she asked the town consider writing a cease and desist.
This is under Tanamaha?
Correct. Yep. Then under number 7, other business, the first sentence, Selectman Noel thanked all the people that spoke that day about the race issue. It's not the race issue. It spoke about the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. The next sentence, it has been a long year trying to bring up this issue. She has tried repeatedly to have the resolution added to the agenda, not racism added to the agenda. That's all I have. Oh, sorry, one other thing. I apologize. Under the approval of minutes, first paragraph, number 1, it said page 3, section George Frampton. I think.
Yeah, we've met. It's okay.
Section.
Yes.
Thing.
Yeah.
And it says George Frampton. And for the final sentence, he referred to some visitors as jihad, and it's actually referred to some visitors as a jihad.
So how is this inaccurate with this quote?
Page 3, it says section something. It seems like something's missing there. And then it should say he referred to some visitors as a jihad.
As a jihad. All right. We have a couple of amendments. So we vote as amended.
I'll make a motion.
We've moved it, so I guess now it's time to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Tim, the Board of Selectmen still has not produced minutes from their emergency Board of Selectmen meeting of August 21st.
What now?
The emergency Board of Selectmen meeting held August 21st. We've not seen any minutes yet to approve.
August 24th?
21st.
21st.
I thought we covered 2 sets last time. All right.
That was the meeting we had on the Saturday before the hurricane.
Oh.
The emergency.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So next on the agenda, we have the Park and Rec Commission, and the Commission wishes to discuss the prospect of having an assistant director position in the future.
Just good to sit here. Will Mike pick me up? Okay.
This is Bob Dunn, the chairman of the Park and Rec Commission, and Don Bugbee, the director of Park and Rec Commission.
Yeah, we'd like very much to thank the Board of Selectmen for adding this to the agenda, and especially moving us up in the agenda. And basically, yes, at the last Park and Rec meeting that we had, our monthly meeting on October 7th, the commissioners felt it was very long overdue for the town to hire an assistant for Don Bugbee. As the Park Rec director, we need an assistant for him because of the overwhelming amount of the work that he's required to do when you look at other local communities and what they have in their Park and Rec departments. Another person would benefit the programs we have and assist in new programs. Don proposed at our meeting that the town should consider the addition of a position of 25 hours per week, 52 weeks per year, not to exceed 1,300 hours in a year. There would be no benefits for the person that was this part-time assistant. Okay, the Park and Rec Commission supported the motion for the addition of a part-time assistant to the Director of Parks and Rec, and that we present that proposal to the Board of Selectmen for discussion/approval at their next meeting. So here we are, and I'm going to go over a couple things here. Now, I don't have a handout for everyone. Be a lot of paper. But anyway, we're going to go over why we think it's justified for Old Lyme to finally have an assistant to the Park and Rec director. A couple handouts I handed to you. It's not only for Old Lyme. Don also supports the people and the children and some adults in some programs of Lyme, Connecticut. And years ago, they used to have a part-time director of Park and Rec, but they no longer seem to have that. And even when they had that, Don did all the work. And that individual did not really help out at all at any of the functions. Say, for instance, currently going on that you have before you, the Saturday morning soccer program for the youth. Don, what is it, about 214?
218 kids.
Okay, 218 kids every Saturday morning that has a soccer. They're fun games that they have downtown, which park, and the park is full. Well, the one person responsible for everything is right over there. So it's not only the town of Old Lyme that he's working for these days, but also the town of Lyme. And although the person taking the minutes, I gave the selectmen a table with Old Lyme and Lyme with the populations and the number of Park and Rec staff that's in our town and Lyme versus the population, the number of people in the population that he's responsible for. Now, in this column, I either rounded up or rounded down the populations as stated in it's the Connecticut Demographics .com, and this is a population estimate given from 2019-2020, one or both of those years. And I'll just summarize what's on this. In Old Lyme, the year-round population is about 7,600 people. In Lyme, there's about 2,400 people. So for a total of 10,000 people that, with one director, one staff member to oversee, register, all the work involved for Park and Rec programs, okay? And Lyme currently has no staff member, and they haven't for a while. So basically, one director is responsible for 10,000, a community of 10,000 people. Now, just for instance, there's other surrounding towns, and I'll name a few. Clinton has a year-round population of 13,200, and they have a director and a clerk, so they have 2 staff members. So, just for statistics-wise, that means that each staff member is serving 6,600 people, whereas Don is serving approximately 10,000 people. In North Stonington, there's one director, and that community has 5,100 people, and so that person is in charge of the program for 5,100 people. And then there's Waterford that has a year-round population of about 19,600, and they have 5 people on the staff, a director, an assistant director, a program coordinator, and 2 staff members. Now, there's no differentiation when I look at on these sites as to whether or not some of these people are full-time or part-time. So I can't answer that because I couldn't get the information, but they do have 5 on their staff, so just statistics-wise, each staff member is taking care of about 3,900 people. East Line has approximately 18,700 year-round residents. They have 5 staff members in the Park and Rec department, 4 staff and 1 secretary, so they're each responsible for about 3,700 people. And we can go down the line. Madison has 17,700 people with 5 staff members, the director, assistant director, and 3 staff. So they're responsible for about 3,540 people each.
We get the picture.
Yeah, you get the picture. Right? You get the picture. There's each of these communities, Old Saybrook, Westbrook, they all have more than one person taking responsibility for people in their programs. So I think the point of this whole table is shows that Old Lyme exceeds all the other local towns in the area, large and small, for Park and Rec, exceeds all the other communities based on the responsibility that each staff member would have for Park and Rec programs. That's that. Okay, now, this is why the Park and Rec Commission voted to move on the presenting here tonight that for the Board of Selectmen's discussion and approval at their next meeting, which is tonight. Don Bugby now will fill you in on some of the responsibilities that he has, and then I'll get around again towards the end to talk a little bit about how this would be financed.
All right, I'll just go briefly go over some stuff without sounding too repetitive from Bob. But I believe the time is past due to have an assistant Parks and Recreation director. Members of the public have stated this to me throughout the years many times, and most recently at Parks and Rec Commission meetings. I currently have an ideal candidate that is more than qualified for this position, is willing to take on responsibility for this job immediately. The candidate has worked for Parks and Rec previously, supervising programs for me, and has a thorough understanding of the young residents' needs and wants. At this point in time, hiring for this position is the way to go, in my opinion. Although the current budget is obviously set, I believe that most, if not all, the wages could be covered from unspent monies in the current Parks and Rec budget and from additional program income. Hiring at this time will also be beneficial in the preparation of next year's budget, which will soon be upon us. This situation, I've discussed this in length with the Finance Director, and the Finance Director has agreed in concept with this process. And as you know, the Parks and Rec Commission voted unanimously to support the request at the October 7th meeting. And here we are here. Some of the things that this person could do is some of the stuff we already do, but we could expand on it for sure. Help develop, implement, and manage additional Parks and Rec programs and expand the current programs throughout the year. We're a lot of seasonal stuff now. Programs could include additional tennis sessions, adult volleyball, pickleball, fitness training sessions, soccer camps, basketball camps, volleyball camps, softball, baseball camps, yoga sessions, hiking groups, canoeing, kayaking, stand-up paddle sessions, and most recently interest was bicycle safety training. We could collaborate with outside agencies such as the Lyme Youth Service Bureau, District 18, the Open Space Commission, and a couple local businesses like Blackball Outfitters and Morrissey Cycles to discuss possibilities of local co-sponsored or joint programs. And this person could also help me and further develop the Parks and Recreation website and social media outlets. Also, it would help me to work on to develop the online registration and payment system, which I think is long overdue as well. So, all the details have to be worked out financially and stuff like that, and that's what we're doing this step first to hopefully proceed going forward.
Okay? Yes. I have spoken to the finance director, Nicole, about this and asked her for some at least preliminary response to how this may be financed. Nicole, on Friday, October 15th, wrote a response to the first selectman and woman, the Board of Finance members, as well as CCing myself and Don Bugby. I'm just going to read this because this comes right from the finance director. I don't involve myself with all the numbers of what goes on in town, but of course they do. She replied to all, I am not aware of any financial analysis that would be outstanding on this issue, but should there be questions or issues to be addressed before either meeting, this one or I guess the Board of Finance meeting tomorrow, please feel free to send to me. I have sat with Don several times over the past year to discuss the financial side of this. Don feels his P&R Park and Rec budget can cover 8 months of salary. If any additional is needed, we can wait until year end for an additional appropriation. We do not have a job description, but for this assistant Park and Rec director position, but based on the needs, approximately 25 hours per week annually or 1,300 hours, I can reasonably estimate where this position will fall on our salary / grade spreadsheet. No issue there other than to request a new job description from the human resources firm. It is anticipated that increased revenue from additional Park and Rec programs would offset some of the cost of the new position as well. I am optimistic that the ARPA funds, which I'm not quite sure what that stands for.
American Recovery Plan.
Oh, okay. Would cover this since it is related to increased offering of outside Park and Rec programs to the community. Currently, programs like soccer, basketball are open to Lyme kids as well. Although Lyme has a PR employee, Don, is performing all of the prep, organization, bookkeeping, etc., etc. We have yet to charge a fee to Lyme for these services, but one should be proposed since it's time-consuming for TOL. What's TOL? Town of Old Lyme. All right, I would just say Old Lyme. Okay. Years ago, Bonnie and I spoke to Steve Matson, who was the first select person up in Lyme, and he was open to such a charge in the future. Time to revisit. This fee could offset this part-time position as well. And this came straight from the Nicole, our finance director, who happens to be in the audience. So if there was a question to be asked by the selectmen, she is here to answer. And just to get everybody over this portion of the meeting tonight, on behalf of the Park and Rec Commission, I urge the selectmen to vote to recommend to the Board of Finance the addition of a part-time assistant director for the Old Lyme Parks and Recreation Department. Any comments, questions, whatever?
So would this be most every month the person would be employed, or would it be seasonal with higher hours during certain months and maybe less hours or no hours?
It probably would be like that, but adding somebody additional, we might be able to do some additional stuff during the winter where it's the slow. So it will go up and down, but.
And I would just like to ask, because salaries were discussed all on this, I've suggested to David Kelsey, the chairman of the Board of Finance, Tim Griswold, Nicole, the chairman, not the chairman, the director of finance, and Don sit down at some point to work on the particulars of what this would encompass. They would be the best suited to do it. And I spoke to David, and if he couldn't make it, maybe he'll represent the Board of Finance, First Selectman, Don, and Nicole to work on the specifics of this. But I'm sure from what I hear from the Director of Finance, this is all very doable. Okay, I'm sorry. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, so once again, I on behalf of the Park and Rec, I urge the Selectmen to vote to recommend to the Board of Finance the addition of a part-time assistant director for Old Lyme Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Don?
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Appreciate it. I do think our Park and Rec functions in the town of Old Lyme need some help. I think that Don has been a one-man show, just as you said tonight, Bob. But, I would like to see the town plan for this development a little bit. We just got this information on Friday, and you just had a recent meeting on it, so the planning piece on that is a little limited, and I would really like to see that the Board of Selectmen develop a policy on how to hire people for this situation. For example, it's great that you have somebody, but maybe we should be posting a position, and I think that process is something the Board of Selectmen need to have a discussion on. If it's not an emergency, and clearly it wasn't an emergency, you probably would have discussed it before the budget cycle last year during COVID when we didn't have a lot going on. I think these are sort of the things that I'm thinking about as far as the process goes, but certainly there's a need. I'd like to see that we could do a lot of the things that some of these towns you suggested do. They go out to their community and do ask what they need, what they'd like to see. I mean, you may have 10,000 people you support, but of that 10,000, who could you potentially really support? It would be good to know what the people want, and that piece would be great. And I think somebody could help you with that had, the time and skill set to do that. So those are the things I'm thinking about. It's mostly process, but clearly there's a need.
All right, thank you.
Is that it? I mean, or anybody?
Yeah, I think the selectmen will mull it over and talk it through. I think there's some enthusiasm for it. Certainly the financial piece is important. So, this is, I think when you and I spoke, it's not an immediate need at the moment. We do want to get it figured out, so I personally think it's got a lot of merit, but I think we need to start coloring in some of the details, and tomorrow night we'll get some input from the Board of Finance as well.
Yes, and I also think that if you, the head of finance, the chairman of finance, and Don all sat together too, to work out some of the particulars, it'd be a good thing.
Indeed. All right. All right, now I think we're at the point to talk about the public comment, whether we want to move public comment. We have a lot of people who have taken their time to come here, and I think it would be beneficial to have the public comment earlier than later.
Tim, I'd like to have a motion that we move the discussion first to the Selectmen on moving the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis first, that we have a motion on that before we bring it to the public.
You're free to make a motion if you wish.
So moved.
You want to state your motion?
I'd like to have a motion to discuss the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? All right, there's no second. I know a lot of people are here to talk about it, so I think we ought to have a motion to move public comment to this point in the agenda, and then people could talk. If that motion passes, I'd like to talk about a couple of ground rules.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Ooh, okay. Okay, motion to move public comment to the next piece on the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. In as much as we have a lot of people, I think we want to have a concise public comment from anyone who wishes to speak. I think comment should be limited to 2 minutes, so people don't go on for a long time. They should stick to the topic. And Chris, do you have a phone which has a stopwatch feature? Because I think we really want to move this along. I think we can devote a number of minutes to it, depending on how many people actually wish to speak. I think if it starts pushing a half an hour, we would want to draw it to a close. I can imagine the comments will be somewhat repetitive after that amount of time. There may be other items under public comment that will come along as well. So maybe what I'll do is to first ask if there is anyone on the telephone. I think they said there were 2 people. There may be more at this point. So I'll see if we can.
Hello.
That?
Hello. Hello. I'd like to talk.
Public comment.
The public comment is an opportunity for the public to state their views on matters.
Okay.
I think the first matter for this is the subject of the racism resolution.
But nobody voiced an opinion to talk about that when you asked them.
I think we have normally in our meetings had opinions on it, public comment. I think it's an opportunity for people to voice opinions, and we're hoping that if a comment is being repeated over and over, we want to avoid that. You don't have something new to add. I think you shouldn't stand up just to say words that have already been said.
You asked if anybody wanted to voice an opinion, and nobody said anything, so why?
No, No, it was,
This is the public comment section.
Hello?
the question was, do we have a resolution? That motion did not pass. That's where it ended. Now, hold on. We're going to embark on public comment. People will be restricted to 2 minutes. And if it gets to be a half an hour in length, then we'll see where we are, and we don't want to go, for ad infinitum.
2 minutes.
So I tried to unmute this phone. Can people on the phone hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay. So, are there any on the phone who wish to have a public comment concerning the resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
If so, I want the person to speak their name and their address, and then we will time, and I'll tell you when your 2 minutes is up if you don't stop first.
Hello?
Who would like to start?
I'd like to speak.
Name?
Carolyn Miranda, 2 Biscayne Boulevard.
Okay, we're going to start the stopwatch. 2 minutes.
Yeah. I hope that town folks will open their eyes really wide and acknowledge that there is social disparity in this town, and then work towards making the town more inclusive and less desperate. On another note, I'd like to thank Mary Jo for her service to our community. I think she's done a wonderful job to try to make government more transparent and inclusive. And I hope that whatever she does in the near future brings her many rewards and much success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Is there another individual on the phone who wants to speak?
Yes.
Your name and address, please.
My name's George Clow, 79 Grassy Hill Road.
All right, you may begin.
I'm the person that in the public news accounts of past Board of Selectmen meetings was identified as the person who spoke up in April on this topic of not having a dialogue and the perspectives on what it means to solve a disparity, as one person said, and a issue of systemic racism as it exists in our United States. When I tried to, back in April, address this issue, I was summarily dismissed. I believe Mr. Griswold demurred, stating that Old Line didn't have a problem. I'd like to bring it to his attention that we just had a police officer cited for making a racist comment in public. I don't think we need an awful lot of discussion to admit that we have some disparity of views on this topic, but I think the very fact that we can't come to a resolution in our own words, much the same way as Lyme, Connecticut did earlier this summer. And I think that their resolution on how to phrase a positive affirmative statement on this situation maybe to give us some guidance as to how we can address the issue without people from both sides feeling that we're saying that we're either racist individuals or a racist community. We are just an affirmative community that I believe just needs to make that statement in the affirmative that we are welcoming and open and willing to address the past issues, but we look to the future as a very positive and engaged community. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else on the phone wish to speak? Anyone else on the phone? Very well.
I can't believe he shut it off.
Great system. All right, we will entertain comments from the hall here. Who wishes to lead off? If you'd come, stand up and state your name, and we'll try to warn you when 30 seconds remains.
Okay, great. I'm Laura Fitzpatrick-Baker, and my husband and I have lived in Old Lyme for the past 20 years, and I'm also a minister in town. And I wanted to add my voice as to why Old Lyme should endorse the letter stating that racism is a public health crisis. As I was thinking about my remarks today and all of us gathering in this one place, I was reminded of the words of Maya Angelou, who said that we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike than we are unalike. I see many of my neighbors here, and I'm reminded about how we all care about our community. We all care about our health, well-being, education, teaching them to be good citizens, caring for one another and their neighbors. We all care about being able to afford to live here and the opportunity for others to live here as well in this beautiful community. We all care about relationships with other towns and our neighbors, the environment, the Connecticut River watershed. We all have that in common. But the latest research out of Ledgelight Health District shows that over time we are 91%. And in this world, having more diversity, inclusion, opportunity for our children to learn and know and go from each other, ethnicities and other communities, what a goal that would be. This letter symbolises and presents to the wider public, as it has for 30 other communities that have endorsed this letter, that we too want and are aware of the fact that racism does impact all of it. It's not saying that I'm a racist or you're a racist. It's saying that racism is something in this country that we all have to grapple with. And I'm afraid
the 2 minutes has expired.
Am I done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Be with you. Anyone else? All right, go ahead.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Steve Youngtight. I'm the senior minister of the Old Lyme Congregational Church, and I live here on Lime Street. And I want to begin by telling you a story. Just 2 nights ago, on Saturday night, representatives from the 3 local churches in town went down to New Haven, where we waited on a side street for about half an hour, and in time, a van appeared, and a family of refugees from Afghanistan emerged from that van. The mother, along with 5 young children, the youngest of whom is 3.5 weeks old. We introduced ourselves, and we said that we were from Old Lyme, and that we were honored to meet them. And then we all got in a car, and we drove back here to Old Lyme, to this community. And that young mother and father will be neighbors with all of us. They'll shop in our stores, they'll work here perhaps. Their kids will go to school with my children and maybe some of your children. On Saturday night, we were thrilled to be able to say to them, welcome to your new home in Old Lyme, Connecticut. Now, I'm standing before you today because I want to ask once again that the Board of Selectmen pass the resolution declaring that racism is a public health crisis. And I stand here in part because of that new family from Afghanistan. They don't speak a language that most of us recognize. They dress differently than most of us, and they worship differently as well. The color of their skin is darker than most of ours in this room. They will stand out in a community such as ours. And that's why we need all of us and our Board of Selectmen to go out of our way, to go out of your way, to ensure that they do feel welcome and protected in this particular environment. And that's why we need the board to set a tone for our residents. Go out of our way to make them welcome. And this resolution is a way of doing that. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for considering the resolution. Thank you, Mary Jo, for bringing it up once again.
Anyone else wish to comment? Yeah? Just a minute. Your second. Yeah.
My name is Grace Mary. I'm 15 years old and I'm a junior in high school. And I live in Old Lyme. So thank you for taking me on. I'm here on behalf of all the students in Old Lyme. As students who are vital parts of the community, yet our voices are often overlooked. Many of my peers feel strongly as Lyme about social justice and continue to fight for equity. But I want to make sure that I can convey our beliefs as strongly as possible. So to deny the presence of racism is to perpetuate something that we all live. As we all know, last month, an Old Lyme police officer who was being unbiased teacher was suspected of racial slur with his car in downtown Old Saybrook. He really knows he will form an opinion on this matter. And by ignoring this discussion, we are showing that Old Lyme youth aren't willing to take necessary measures to ensure these kinds of incidents don't happen in our community. To deny the presence of racism is to be complicit in its damage. Racism is present in Old Lyme, and it is harmful to everybody in our community, whether you're white or whether you're a person of color. It is crucial that you support the resolution to declare racism as a public health crisis, because we need to take this first and important step in healing the racism that divides our town. And I know that many of you think that declaring public health crisis is something that's done in a negative light, but I disagree. I think that it will show that we care and that we realize that there's a problem and that we're willing to take the steps to change. My peers and I are in church this class, and I want to be able to tell my kids that our town is on the right side of history, and I want to be able to tell them that our town helps you with your city that you want to be. So please support this resolution.
That lady who had her hand up next.
14 Road. Yes, I don't have a prepared speech, but I just want to follow up on what he said. Over the last 5 years, we've welcomed a number of refugee families to town. And of those families, one family remains, the Hello family. They call this home now. They left their family behind here. If you ask any one of them, they'll say their family now is our community. They've been welcomed. The other families didn't move because they weren't welcome. They moved because there was no affordable housing in town. One of the reasons I support this resolution is that it will require town to go deeply into regulations, I'm speaking specifically now about zoning regulations, that are designed by intent or otherwise to keep housing very expensive, and the result being that people of lower income, probably other minorities or other communities can't afford to live here. We need to do that. We need to show that we're welcoming. Part of it is looking deeply at our zoning regulations. And to add, it's not just refugees. That was a wonderful speech. From the high school kids, how many of those kids are going to be able to afford to live in our once they're on their own? Because of our high cost of housing, they may be excluded, and many of our refugees. My hope is that by the time this new Afghan family has made this challenge its home, there will be
Just in the back, please.
My name is Carly Burdock, I'm resident of Lyme. I own property. I just wanted to remind you, and I want to thank the students. Last year's graduating valedictorian was Connie Tan, who is an Asian young woman. And she, in her valedictory address at Regional District 18, said that she was aware of racism during her time at Old Lyme High School.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that. Thank you.
My name is Charlie Blanks. I'm a lifetime, I'm almost a townie. I moved here 5 years old, so it doesn't quite count. I went through the whole school system. Never heard anybody say anything racist. Never heard any parents say anything racist. Got to high school, and one of the most beloved teachers in the high school was Fred Chappelle, French teacher who happened to be black. Nobody ever made any notice that the guy was black. We didn't even think he was black. It was just Fred. Now everybody's racist. We're judging the past by today's standards because it was so evil what went on back then. Well, it doesn't do that now, but we're living as if it does. In New York, they're taking they want to take Jefferson's statue away. Did anybody get to vote on that? Because it's all, everybody's racist, I'm really, really sick and tired of it.
I'm new to the community. We live on Whippoorwill Road. We moved here for the schools, and we absolutely love here. Such a welcoming community. So I actually wanted to, we moved here after many years in London, teach modern history at Connecticut College. And I wanted to follow up on what this gentleman said, because you mentioned the past. And I also wanted to call our attention to what this resolution is asking of us. We've talked about it being a symbolic thing, but, I mean, why not adopt this resolution? I've read it, and I hope you all will too. It ultimately would commit us as a community to learning more about how structures and policies have created health systems. So it's not that everyone's a racist. It's not that to adopt this would mean everyone's a racist. It is not controversial in the medical community to say that racism has negatively impacts health. So it does not, to adopt this would not be some stain on. I listened to what you said, and I don't think that's what this resolution is asking us to do. It's asking us to educate ourselves about state policies, things like redlining and covenant deed restrictions on real estate that have made the segregated world that we live in the United States, including, I don't agree that this has nothing to do with our community. Old Lyme is part of all of America. So, we moved here for the schools, and I'm sure you'll agree that education is a good thing. It's in fact a calling card of this town. So many people I know move here for they are excellent. So I would ask that as part of our community's commitment to education, that we adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Go ahead, stand up.
I'm unfortunately not as eloquent as some of our former speakers, but I do my best. My name is Dr. Anthony Correo. I moved to Old Lyme in 1970. My family has been residents here for over 50 years. I raised 4 wonderful children in the Old Lyme school system. My children are all doing well. My daughter still lives in Old Lyme, and she's raising 2 grandchildren in Old Lyme. So I guess that makes us 3rd generation Old Lymers, and proud to be. I spent many hours in Norwich working in 3 dental clinics when I first opened my practice. The only criteria was need. We never looked at skin color. We never looked at ethnicity. All we did was provide superior dental treatment for people in need. Okay? My wife was a clinical psychologist, did the same thing in New London. She worked out with family services for years and years and years. again, provide psychological services to people in need for no compensation. In 42 years of practice in Old Line, I can honestly heard anything of a racist nature being bantered about. It just did not exist. Because comment on some of your other commentations, I agree with you. Old Line is a beautiful town. We welcome newcomers. It's nurturing. It's welcoming. We never look at color. We never look at creed. We never look at ethnicity. When you come to Old Line, you're welcome. You become a part of the town, a part of the community. I also agree we probably need more low-cost housing to bring people to Old Line. I heard the comment that 91% of Old Line is white. Well, that may be, but that's demographic. That has nothing at all to do with racism. I mean,
Tony, I'm afraid you reached your 2 minutes. You have more to go.
Can I just say, I vehemently and I adamantly oppose this resolution for many reasons. It opens a door we don't want to go to.
I resent the fact that everyone is trying to make us feel that we are racist. I was in the house 31 years, and there, as far as I can see, there is no racism in here. Only what people want you to think is here. I have Indian people living down the road from me. We supported their children through their sports, through school, anything that went on. For school, I don't look at color. I look at what this community has or used to have. Now everybody is pitting us, and it's not just the town, it's the entire world is pitting us against each other. Right. This is not a racist community. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hello, thank you for hearing us. My name is Sheila Rickle. I live at 57 Holt Lane here in Old Line. I just have to say, I know I only have 2 minutes, but it is so great to see all these people in the room. I don't care what you think. Just the fact that you're here and being aware of what's going on, this is not what I expected when I walked in, because this is my 4th meeting in the last 4 meetings, and I've never seen this many people here, even from last year. So with that, I would just like to re-propose to the select person that maybe we're not ready for a resolution per se based on what we're hearing. However, we're hearing a whole different set of perspectives, and we call ourselves a welcoming town, which has been my experience in the short time that I've lived here. I would like to re-propose that you consider putting together some kind of a focus group or some focus group conversations. Find a professional who can come and facilitate some discussions. One of my very, very dear neighbors is here, and we do not see things the same way, but that doesn't get in the way of how much we care about one another. And I would love to sit down with that person, with a facilitator who is skilled, to help all of us unpack what we see as racist or not racist, and just look at humanity as a whole, and stop being so threatened. I just think that look at this town come together on one issue. This is inspiring. So if we could have somebody help us with discussions, I have a feeling we would probably be able to find more common ground than we think. Instead of rolling our eyes at each other and cheering each other's comments, we can come together. And this is a topic to help us do that. We have people from a whole variety of perspectives, and yet most of us are white. Okay. And none of us have seen racism. Well, I don't know what your experience is as a man, because I'm not one.
Sheila, for 2 minutes of that.
Sorry, I get fired.
Back in there.
My name is Sandra Yarrow-Rue, and I've been coming up here since 1960. I live right now in retirement on Lieutenant River Lane. And I think I should tell you my own story about how I began to correct my lenses. I grew up in New York City in a very privileged area. I went to a private school, and so I had very narrow lenses. And it wasn't until I got to graduate school that a professor gave us a book that talked about the stereotypes that we feel about other races. So I began to think about that. Yeah, that's me. And eventually, as I started moving out of my little circle, I started volunteering. I volunteered in a child abuse program in Washington, D.C. I volunteered in a court assistance program in Yonkers, in the family court. I came up to Old Lyme, and I started to volunteer with Kathy Zoll in the New London Homeless Hospitality Center. By the way, she's my hero. And I sat down with people, talking to them. One man told me that he was sitting in his car, and he was picked up because he was sleeping in his car, and he was taken into the police, and he was ticketed, and he couldn't afford the ticket. Now, do you think that would happen to me? No. I could have slept in my car, and nobody would have bothered me. I sat with a woman who was grieving over the death of her son from an overdose of fentanyl. And we have suicides at the shelter all the time. They're hopeless. And I have learned through the years that I needed corrective lenses. How to be more open to other people. How to look at them as individuals. Not to see a stereotype. And so that's why I think you should pass this resolution to give us all corrective lenses. Thank you.
My name is Martha Rumsfeld. I worked for the town for 21 years. Before that, I worked for the state of Connecticut for 10 years. I lived 10 years out of the country on an island with 85% black. So my best friend did that. My children were black kids at that time. They were young, but they still did. When they came here, they had friends that were of other races. I was working for the town. I never saw any racism at all. And maybe that's because I don't feel it. Now, maybe some people feel racism, so they feel guilty. So they figure, we got to pass this resolution to make us feel better. But I've never felt it. I don't think we should pass this resolution. I agree with her. I think everybody should have a chance to get together and discuss it and see what we can bring out on our own. I don't think this town is systemically racist. And we that are not racist should be labeled as such that. And I think some people in this room are labeling people as being racist when they're not. And that's because some of us are conservative. And you're going to automatically label us racist because it's the thing to do these days. Okay? So, I have a friend who has a niece and a nephew that are black. They have kids. Okay. I know someone who is on the board of selectmen who has grandchildren that are black. So you can't say they're racist. Let's see. As I said, in my experience, I've been in this town for over 45 years. And I brought my children here. And I didn't even think about race when I brought my children. In Bermuda, they went to school and to preschool and kindergarten and everything with black kids. These were 85% black kids. I have friends, the man from Jamaica that lives behind you. There's a woman across the street on Richwood that has black grandchildren. And
Martha,
and they walk around.
I think, thank you.
All the time. So I don't want to be labeled racist. I am not, and I know there's many people in this room that are not. And I think people are labeling us racist, and I don't agree.
me is to determine whether racism is a public health crisis. I don't see a public health crisis. That's all I need to say.
Hi, I'm Stephen Wilson. I live at 22 Townwoods Road. I'm reading a letter from Steve Ross, who lives at 14 Sandalwood Lane, and it's relatively short. These are his words, I'm reading verbatim. Selectmen knows and repeatedly urged the Board of Selectmen to adopt a resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. Her sole argument has been that other Connecticut towns have done so. I believe that 22 towns have issued such a resolution, which means 147 have not, and that puts the issue into perspective. She has not presented any data or evidence to indicate racism is a problem in Old Lyme. She has not provided any information regarding what tangible results have resulted in towns that have issued a resolution. I have repeatedly asked her to make a case with actual data and info indicated above, and she has ignored the request. Signed, Stephen Ross.
Oh.
Lee Kentner, 1 Bayberry Ridge, Old Lyme. I'm following up with Dr. Correa here. I've been in practice in Old Saybrook, but treated all my friends and colleagues in Old Lyme. I've raised 2 children who are so anti-racist, it's unbelievable. They just would get involved in they're involved with Carlene in the church, and they're beautiful kids. What I would charge the second selectman is to make a definition by race issues versus racism. That's big. I mean, if we look and say, okay, the slums of a town are a race problem. There's a racial problem there. That doesn't mean necessarily a racial crisis or systemic racism. I agree with the gentleman here. It doesn't exist. It's not a crisis in this town.
What is he going to do down the road? Mayor de Blasio has just said no more accelerated classes because that is racist. Does that mean down the road we're going to start going to, oh, we can't have accelerated classes? I have a 7th grader, not an accelerated class. A 9th grader who was. That shouldn't be taken away from my 9th grader because my 7th grader is not able to do the work. And by passing this type of resolution, the concern is what's going to follow down the road. I'm not saying it's racist. Everybody has views in their head that at some point are probably racist in their lifetime. But this resolution scares me as to what's going to come down the road for our education system. Because like somebody said, we live in a world where 99 people cannot be affected by something. One person is. It may have nothing to do with race, and that is automatically labeled a racist issue. So my concern is resolutions can lead to what down the road, taking things away from our kids. I think every kid should have every opportunity, but opportunities shouldn't be taken away from kids because some kids are able to do it, but some kids aren't. And they'll label that as, well, because it's racist, it doesn't work for some people. And I don't think that's an accurate statement. I have no problem with talking about things to focus through, but to say we're automatically going to make a resolution on this, I think is wrong. Thank you.
I'm a retired physician. I've lived here since 2004. And I guess I would like to hear the resolution read aloud, because when I read the resolution, it did not talk about racist behavior. As a physician, when I entered training in Boston in 1980 and 1981, I remember a black professor telling me that that racism was a public health problem. And I tucked it away, but I didn't understand it. And I worked in the inner city.
I dealt with all different races of people. I thought I gave equitable care. Over time, and especially as an oncologist, I've seen many cases that show evidence of disparity in care for people of color. And the most striking is for African American versus white, but any race that's a minority can be affected. And I think the person who said that we may have some, not so much unexpressed, but unrealized stereotypes in our heads is very much the case. And I think that what this resolution is trying to bring forward is not labeling people racist. It's identifying the fact that systemic problems have led to inequity. And if you don't believe that, I can give you plenty of references. I can give you references on black women versus white women with breast cancer, black women and children, babies versus white women, and the neonatal disparities. I mean, it's very striking. And COVID has made it worse and made it much more apparent. And when you read through and read all the things that can lead to a bad outcome with COVID, the biggest discrepancy when you account for all those things. So I just think that we need to be educated. It doesn't mean we want to labeling each other as being racist. That's not the point. The point is to open up our understanding of what the new eyes, as people have said before, and what other systemic issues. So if you could please read the resolution, I don't understand why it was not voted to be read at the beginning. I agree, we need a reading of the resolution.
I think we have time. I think we have time for two more comments.
Can you read the resolution, please?
That's a pretty long resolution. I think that's going to take up the rest of the time. If you want to do that, we'll suspend more talk.
There are copies around anyway.
We'll put it down around if they were here to make comments. Hi, I'm Isabel Barber. I live in the Rogers Lake neighborhood. I'm a public health professional. I've been a public health professional for over 20 years. There are tons of citations and data that show that racism is a public health issue. The position you spoke is exactly correct. So for those folks that don't think this is in the public health purview, again, there's a lot of information that we can provide. I want to yield the remaining part of my time about the group for you to read on football.
What did you ask?
I asked you to read the resolution.
I don't have a copy of it here.
Would you like a copy?
Why don't you read it?
No, she asked you. You read it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can we ask a question here? Depending on what the result is of whether you accept the resolution or not, what does it mean if you accept the resolution? What will change because of that?
Well, the Board of Selectmen would have certain requirements. I know that from reading it. Racism is a social system with multiple dimensions. Individual racism, that is interpersonal and or internalized or systematic racism, that is institutional, structural, and is a system of structural opportunity, assigning value based on the social interpretation of how one looks. Whereas racism is a social construct with no biological basis.
Did you read that again?
No. I'm not sure this is the same resolution. Huh? Racism unfairly disadvantages specific individuals and communities while unfairly giving advantages to other individuals. That's the same one. Let's do this one.
One of them that you've seen.
Okay. The second paragraph, racism unfairly disadvantages specific individuals and communities while unfairly giving advantages to other individuals and communities and saps the strength of the whole society through the waste of human resources. Racism is a root cause of poverty and constricts the economic mobility, whereas racism causes persistent discrimination and disparate outcomes in many areas of life, including housing, education, employment, and criminal justice, and is itself a social detriment of health. Whereas racism and segregation have exacerbated a health divide resulting in the people of color in Connecticut bearing a disproportionate burden of illness and mortality, including COVID, infection, and death, heart disease, diabetes, and infant mortality, whereas Black, Native American, Asian, and Latino residents are more likely to experience poor health outcomes as a consequence of inequities in economic stability, education, physical environment, food, and access to health care, and these inequities are themselves a result of racism. Whereas multiple peer-reviewed studies have linked racism to worse health outcomes, and whereas the collective prosperity and well-being of Old Lyme depends upon the equitable access to opportunity for every resident, regardless of the color of their skin. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Old Lyme Board of Selectmen, 1, assert that racism is a public health crisis affecting our town and all of Connecticut. 2, work to progress as an equity and justice-oriented organization by continuing to identify specific activities to enhance diversity and to ensure anti-racism principles across our leadership, staffing, and contracting, to promote equity through all policies approved by the Board of Selectmen, and enhance educational efforts aimed at understanding and addressing and dismantling racism and how it affects the delivery of human and social services, economic development, and public safety. 4, improve the quality of data our town collects and the analysis of that data. It is not enough to assume that an initiative is producing its intended outcome. Qualitative and quantitative data should be used to assess inequities in impact and continuously improve. 5, continue to advocate locally for relevant policies to improve health in communities of color and support local, state, regional, and federal initiatives that advance efforts to dismantle systemic racism. 6, to further work to solidify alliances and partnerships with other organizations that are confronting racism and encourage other local, state, regional, and national entities to recognize racism as a public health crisis. 7, to support community efforts to amplify issues of racism, engage actively and authentically with communities of color wherever they live. And 8, identify clear goals and objectives, including periodic reports to the Board of Selectmen to assess progress and capitalize on the opportunities to further advance racial equity. The end. One more, Mr. Cannon.
Thank you. My name is Bud Canada. I live at 11 River Bend Road in Old Lyme. I've lived here for about 30 years. This resolution is a Trojan horse. If we pass this, we are tacitly admitting that there's racism in Old Lyme. And come on, people. Anybody who lives here knows that's not the case. I mean, the fact that we have fewer black people here, it's nothing to do. We're not looking. Hey, in the wintertime, I live in Utah. There's about 10% black people there, too. Do you think Mormons are racist? Of course not. So, you're looking at something here that it's very clever movement. I must say, I will give the selectmen here great credit to slide this thing in, which sounds, it isn't all that. Now, of course, I don't believe racism is contagious, so I don't think it's a public health care crisis, but nevertheless, I think we should shut it down, because that's what they're trying to do. That's what all these people who think the country is systemic racism. Baloney. They're trying to sell it, but they haven't done any other propaganda to sell. Thank you.
You still didn't answer the question. If you pass this resolution, what does that mean?
It's a public, public comment.
What does that mean? So what we're going to announce we're a town that we don't like other classes to come in here. What? I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him.
This is public comment.
Ma'am?
what does it mean to this town? And I want to know what that means. I don't want to hear the bullshit about, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, you don't know what you're talking about. Bottom line is, I don't shop in this town. Everybody that comes to my shop, I treat them equally, and I will always treat them equally. This town has got to stop this bullshit of we have to tell the rest of the world that we don't like other people living here. And that is wrong. It is totally wrong for this town. And Tim, you and your second selectman have stuck to it. And you know what? And that's what you need to stick to it. Anybody who is in this room from line, you don't belong, you sit the hell out. So that's what we want you to be. Because you have nothing. We are here for our town. Our town is not that way. We are not politically doing all that crap.
All right. Okay.
And tell me what happens if we pass this resolution. I want to know what
I just read the resolution. We have to do a lot of stuff.
but what happens in this town if we pass that?
That would have to be determined. You have to read the resolution and
So we're all here for nothing.
No, we're having public comment. The resolution was not moved for adoption, so it's a dead issue at this point. It could be resurrected later. Who knows? All right, I think we've had public comment sufficiently. We run way over our expected time. We thank you for the input. I know there are a lot of diverse opinions, and we welcome them, but I think we've reached the end of our time frame for this, and I think we ought to maybe take a little, we'll take a little, what do you call it, recess, and then we'll reconvene in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put a sheet on the table out here, and if you're interested in a focus group conversation, we'll figure out how to make it happen. Come on, call.
All right.
Anything on the agenda about the bench in my neighborhood? That's just, it's getting like out of hand.
You know what's going to happen? The next thing they're going to be teaching critical race theory. The next thing that's going to happen, we're going to be labeled racist. Because that'll absolutely finish us.
Hi, sometimes put the thing on, I live in, Noyes Road with the bench with Repaving. Is there anything on the agenda about that tonight?
I promised you later. Berto, you mean?
Yeah, with that. Is there anything?
We sent him that letter. We've moved the bench. He has continued to pass.
Oh, he does it all the time.
Yeah, and so I spoke to him once, and I'm going to have another meeting. The bench must be behind the barrier. I want to get somehow to put very heavy weight under the feet so it can't be moved. It's going to look like it has holes in it. You could do that. And then to say that if you continue to do this,
I don't know if you're aware, but we have a new neighbor in the neighborhood who bought Lori Mattson's house. It's the house right across from the bench. So he owns the property,
on the left side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was working on it. The day he was having his septic done, Rodriguez went over to him and gave him a big lecture about how he still has special needs or something. He gave him the same deal that he tried to give Mary Bonnie. You guys sent him a letter saying none of that's true. Technically, it's not bogus story. So I just want to hear. I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing.
We're committed to have him cease and desist, and he tried to argue that Doyen is cutting, but as I told him, there are landowners who have grassy areas between their property and the road, and we welcome them to maintain them. So, and if this is a pavement, he kind of goes like this to the Phragmites, so he was saying, well, he goes beyond where he should.
We're here happy
the end result is it's town property. We can allow what we want.
Okay.
We don't want you to trash.
And they've been awful for doing, you know this story, they have, we have going away. I really appreciate it. I live in a tan house across the street. I'm at 2 Debits, so I'm at 2 Debits, so I'm on the corner, so here's Joanne, and here's the third road, and you come to the middle road, and there's the house here, open space here, I'm in that corner, so I'm on the house on the corner of the third road. So I hear when he's sitting at the bench, one day they took a picture of the front of my house, I don't know why. I know they don't like me. Probably doesn't. Either born to me. Yeah. I'm one of the ones who feels like he's yelled at me in front of my kids. And my daughter
right here,
yeah, one day my daughter said, I believe it's taking me up the end.
I just want to take a picture of it.
I don't know why. But I do appreciate, what we get scared about, and I'll tell you one version. I get nervous when they name anything when it comes to them.
Yeah.
Because they're awful.
Okay.
So, my mom's feeling, so I'm down with it. I appreciate what you've been doing.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, Steve, I have to feel like I want to get a picture of it.
Okay, that was not my opinion, that was just better. I don't know.
Sorry, I don't know. Let's talk about it next week. That's a letter to all of you. Yes. These are minutes. Okay. We have had several, only which were, I don't know, that was someone from the audience, but it's very close. This is one of the many versions the board has been given. No, I need it for the meeting. I can give it to you at the end if you're going to be here. Yeah, I'll give it to you then. All right. Yeah, I just need it for today.
Selectmen has. Start moving ahead, huh?
Yeah, I don't want to be here all night.
Yeah, I got it.
I've had so many.
Hey, I'll see you Saturday night. Thank you so much for coming. Is Bonnie going to be there?
Did you invite her?
No, I thought
Who did I ask? I asked Joe Lacasse if he had invited her.
Oh, maybe you did.
But I can give her a call.
I know she's out in California. I don't know when she's out in California. I don't know when she's
Oh,
back.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks so much. It'll be a good time.
I'm looking
Got
forward
about
to it.
17 band and all kinds of stuff, so thank you.
Anyway, I'm gonna have to ask you a question. I walked in both.
But I scribbled them together.
So I'm, I'd like to see us move forward. It's a non-binding resolution. That's my feedback anyway. Oh, there's a dog. Anyway, are you running for ZBA also?
They put me on something, ZBA, I think, so.
All right. Well, I've been an alternate for the last 6 months. But I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good board.
Yeah, I hopefully maybe won't bring this in. Well, that's the way it should be. What's that? Thanks. Yeah. Seen your boy Zach lately? Well, he only calls when he needs something.
I just don't have a lot of time. It's always, He's doing all right. Steady me.
All right, we want to resume the meeting. We want to resume the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. So we will go back to the agenda. Next item is old business under projects, the sound views. Yes.
Sorry, we had communications that we skipped over.
I haven't seen it.
We had a letter that was sent from Sheila Riffle twice to us, asking for an appointment with you on September 22nd and earlier this month.
I haven't seen it yet.
What do you say?
Sheila Riffle has emailed all of us twice now to ask for appointment to have a discussion with you. Twice, September and October. Also, we have a couple of, at least one letter from Paul Fuchs, dated October 11th, regarding Park and Rec request to put up a pavilion and it also had a response from Bob Dunn.
Okay, I'll have to read this, I haven't seen it. No.
Do you have the email? They're in your email.
Okay, Soundview sidewalks.
Thank you. The Soundview Gateway Committee responsible for the grant, the sidewalk project in Hartford Avenue and Shore Road, went through all the town required regulatory process for permitting. Our last meeting was with zoning last Tuesday. Zoning approved the request to build a transit hub on town-owned property at 290 Shore Road with there's a couple caveats. The town engineer wanted the aprons of the driveways extended slightly, which won't be a problem. They want some of the trees to be reallocated around the frontage of the abutting properties. That shouldn't be an issue. So we're moving forward. The design engineer, BSC Group, is going to be submitting the modifications to the transit hub to the DOT this week. And as soon as the DOT gives us the green light, which we expect to be fairly quick, we can move forward. In the meantime, Frank Pappalardo of the committee and myself are meeting with, setting up meetings to meet with the abutting neighbors to discuss their concerns. And I'm going to be meeting on Friday with the contractor, preparation for his receipt of the change order to do the work.
They allowed a certain amount of time at the end of the summer. I don't know if they voted or didn't vote. It wasn't on the agenda.
I know that there will be an appropriation required at some point.
I've tried to
work on it, and I think there needs to be a real effort to develop what sort of funds be needed to complete the project. Some of these things are not yet solidified, but...
what isn't solidified? Like what is not solidified?
Well, I think we need to ultimately come to the Selectmen and the Board of Finance with a request so that a town meeting can be scheduled, or we can piggyback on a town meeting, because the sum that's in the budget will be insufficient. And I just don't want to have it where some bills come in and where we don't have the funds to cover it. So, there's a process to get all this approved. So I just caution that this needs to be front and center.
I agree. That's why we've been developing a fairly accurate budget, which you have, which the Finance has, which our Finance Director has, that leading up to the transit hub, we have approximately, just for the eligible costs, we have over $11,000 left in that part of the budget. If we do everything that we plan to do on the transit hub, we'll come 11,000 under. If we are, that would put us at 388, 360 if we include all the ineligible costs. So those are the municipal costs for the design services that the town doesn't employ someone to do this function. So we went out to get that expertise and primarily legal, the easements that the town has been using, one at Shore Road and Hartford Avenue for signage for Soundview. We had to pay for an easement for that. And then we had to do a survey of the property at 290 Shore Road, and it was over $3,000. That came out of our budget. It wasn't an eligible cost. That's a municipal cost. So, but the town didn't have an active survey or an accurate survey. In fact, we couldn't find a survey of that property when the town bought it from the church at the time. So we spent significant funds on getting that done, which is a municipal cost. So ultimately, we're still waiting for some of these modifications, as I mentioned, from our contractor for the aprons, et cetera. But at this point, we have a projection of the total cost of the project, which you've received as $423,787.
And that includes all the things that haven't, you know, the so-called municipal costs, right?
That's our cost to date, yep.
Okay, Soundview Sewers, the bids were put out, and there were, this would be for the collection pipe. There was a range of bids received from about 3.9 million to about 4.5 million. The bids have not been vetted, so there is no decision to go with a particular vendor as yet. These are just bids that have come in, and they're being evaluated by the engineer. The pump station itself, there was a bid of approximately 2.2 million to up to 3.6 million. And the force main, which is the pipe that would go from the pump station to East Lyme, including an odor control facility, I understand bids came in between 8 million and 13 million. I haven't seen the sheet on that. So there will be work to evaluate the various bids, and the decision will need to be made as to what to do. This would be shared by the 3 private beaches and the town. So that WPCA and the engineer will be working on that. But we're hoping that this will come in at a level that's acceptable. The committee is also working on trying to identify other revenue sources that might come from state or federal. We do have clean water money involved, but if we were able to get some sort of other American recovery type, not necessarily the money that the towns receive, but money from other sources, that would be of great help. So that's a work in progress.
Tim, how does the overall cost compare to the last round of bids, which came in?
I think the last one was something, didn't we understand it was something like 18 or 19 million. So depending on which bids might be selected, this could be less, but it's still, I understand certain materials are in short supply or difficult to obtain. Piping is not working right.
Because if I add all these up, going by the higher numbers, we're above what the other bids were, the other round of bids.
So,
14 to 21 million, so we're less and above.
Yeah. So we'll have to stand by for those earlier bids were from 2 companies. It was for the whole project, so it was thought that by breaking it into smaller parts, there would be more bidders and an overall lower price. So that will hopefully happen, but it's too early to know.
What's the next step in this? Will the WPCA be the evaluator?
Yeah, they'll be working with the 3 beaches and the Fuss and O'Neill engineer to evaluate and come up with recommendations. So. And
will they make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, or what's the next step as far as that goes?
Yeah, they'll have to be, the various beaches would need to approve their aspect of it as well as the town, and so it's going to be a complicated process. So if the various groups feel that the certain bids are the way to go, then we start moving in a direction to try to structure it and ultimately start doing stuff, because we're we really want to get that force main installed on Route 156. So we'll just have to wait and see where they come out with the discussions with the engineer.
And what is the timing on this?
I don't have a timing as yet. The bids have been received. This one is this past week, so on the big price, so that it's too early to know. And I don't think we can just say take the lowest numbers of each of them and that'll be it. You know, it'll be a lot of analysis. So I think at some point we'll have to get the chairman of the WPCA to come speak to us and inform us what the steps are and what's likely to happen.
Okay, just last question. Of all the different components that you gave us, the pump station, the force main, the actual collection pipe, what's the first thing that goes in?
What is what?
What's the first of those items that gets constructed? Is it the force main? Or do they all go in together?
The force main would be a very important one to get structured, because that would put the pipe down 156 to East Lyme. And as we know, Route 156 was paved from Lyme down to the Essex Savings Bank at Halls Road. The DOT wants to complete that job all the way to East Lyme. So it would be very bad if they went ahead and paved that and we had not structured our deal to put the pipe in, because then once we did that, we would be required to make the street as it was when they repaved it, and that would be a lot of extra money there. So I know everyone is eager to get something resolved, but just what and when, it's a little murky at this point.
Has the DOT come to you and said they want to begin repaving?
No, I know there's one of the beaches that has some contacts that are trying to keep DOT patient, and you know, Route 156 is quite passable, but it's on their program to do it, and so I think we have to be sensitive that we need to get this done as quickly as we can. So it's really going to be a complicated process, and hopefully something can be structured so that next season for paving we can do it.
Okay, the reason why I asked that is about 5 years ago, and the town paid for this. We had a grant that looked at Shore Road, and we had included a bike lane on Shore Road as far as the plans, but because the DOT planned to come in and repave, they put that bike lane section on hold. We were verbally promised at the table that they would consider those plans when they came back to repave. So if you do get the opportunity to talk with the DOT about repaving, can you remind them of our plans, which are in the Selectmen's office?
We'll have to find out.
The bike lane?
Yeah, we'll have to find out who the interface is with DOT. I'm not sure how much discussion's ongoing with them at this point, but that would be wonderful if we could do something. It might require more than just making paving a little different. You know, there are some real physical obstacles, so I don't know whether those issues were resolved and it was just a question of when they paved they could do it or what, but I wasn't involved in that part of it.
Yeah, well, the plans do indicate where the pinch points are. They would have to extend the road. They were planning at that point anyway to make room for the bikeway in those little pinch points. There were a couple of them.
Well, if you have some names of contacts, that would be helpful. I guess
it's all in your office. It's all in there.
Good. Okay. The transfer station scale house is under construction. The contractor has built the walls and doing the roofing and so forth, so that's moving along nicely. Our facilities man indicated that this would hopefully be finished by the first week of December, so we'll get an update as we go along here, but they are the structure really is taking shape, and I know there's a lot that happens once the shell is constructed, so that's moving along as well as it can at the moment. The Blood Street Partners agreement, this has to do with Park and Rec, the rowers who purchased the building. An agreement was drafted, and 3 of the 5 partners have signed, and we are expecting 2 others will come and sign as well. And once that's put to bed, there will likely be a 6th person. One of the partners moved out of state, so once a new partner is identified, that partner will become part of the agreement as well. The Ames open space, that is moving along. The Planning Commission, I believe, has granted its had its 824 hearing. So I think there's not much left to do besides schedule a town meeting to approve the acquisition and the use of the funds from the Land Acquisition Fund. This has been a long process, and I think it would really fit very nicely into the plan, giving good access to that property. I think it's been in the newspapers and so forth, so that hopefully is everything is on track for a town meeting, probably within a couple of 3 weeks, I should think, and then there'd be a vote on that. The American Recovery Plan Committee had a meeting. You were in attendance, Mary Jo.
You skipped Tanahag.
Okay. Let's go back to that. Tanahag. I took a drive down to the property, and I noticed that there has been some shrubbery or bushes planted on the property. I called our attorney and indicated that, before, I guess it had been sitting on the ground, but this is now in the ground, and this seems to me a more serious step. So he is going to supposedly meeting with the owners today, and we want to have a meeting with him and myself to discuss that this needs to be addressed and resolved. We want this, this title situation is complicated, and I think we want to move forward and have an agreement made so we can get to the end of this. But I think that we need to have this situation resolved very shortly, so that is on track to happen, I would say, next week. There'll be a meeting with them. American Recovery, the first meeting was the 6th of October. So do you want to elaborate on that, Mary Jo?
Sure. I attended the meeting. I know, Tim, you called in. Was essentially run by Dave Roberge, our emergency management director, and he was representing primarily the first responders on the committee. The committee was sworn in. A chairman was selected, who is Tom Gatauka, who is the Old Lyme representative to Ledgelight. I think he's been on had that job, volunteer job, for about 5 years. He's done a really great job. He has a healthcare background, so it's a good fit. And then everybody on the committee was given a lot of paper to try and get through by our next meeting, which is this Wednesday, I believe at noon.
Okay, good. What I'll do is I'll consolidate the direct requests we have received from different entities. I don't know that information has been presented, but in anticipation of the next meeting, at least. That's not to say that they have to be acted upon, but at least they'll be known, and then can take it from there. Next item is the employee handbook. There were some modifications concerning sick leave. So this has to do with sick leave, personal days. I think the selectmen were given copies of the revision, and did you see these?
No, I did not.
You did not?
No. Did you email it?
I thought that this was distributed. Yeah, because we would need to approve this, and then it could be put into the employee manual. Essentially, it says at the end of the fiscal year, non-union full-time employees have an opportunity to carry over the maximum of up to 30 days of their accrued but unused sick leave balance as of June 30th into the next year. Non-union full-time employees may also elect to be cashed out for all or a portion of their accrued but unused sick leave balance as of June 30th. Any balance in excess of 30 days must be cashed out. After the pay date for the payroll, for which includes June 30th, eligible employees will have 1 week to submit their written request to the finance department using a certain form. If no request is received by the due date, the finance will cash out all of the employees' accrued but unused sick leave as of June 30th. All accrued but unused sick leave cashed out at each fiscal year will be paid out at the employee's pay rate for the fiscal year in which the sick leave was accrued. And then there was another element which says, upon separation of employment, full-time employees will be compensated for any amount of accrued but unused sick time at 100% of their current rate of pay. And then it goes into what already exists. So those were the two modifications. So if you're comfortable moving this now, we could do it. If you want to consider it later, we could do that. But I think it's, what is your choice? Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, this is what we received and approved July 21st, 2020 and July 14th, 2020. So for some reason, we just haven't signed this, right? Authorized that.
I guess we haven't
Actual
adopted
change.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it would please the board, we could get a motion to approve the revision and have it incorporated in the employee handbook.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, under new business, maybe it's not even new business, but here it is. The wage and salary survey has begun, and in the budget we have a carryover amount of $6,000 for this part of it. There's also $20,000 for a HR part-time staff or some consulting type function, which is separate and distinct. Looking at the parameters of the study, it appears that by looking at the job descriptions and what is to be done and the unit costs, it comes up to around $9,450 actually. But there may be additional things to look at, such as if the part-time park and rec person approves, for instance. So I think in order to be safe, we might want to approach the Board of Finance to augment what we have on hand so that we won't be short for money when the job is finally performed. If we were to add $2,550, we would have, say, $12,000 available for this. So it would be a basic contingency, and if we didn't need it, it wouldn't be spent. We have $6,000 on hand, and so the request would be $6,000 additional if the Board of Finance would see fit to approve that. So it would be helpful to recommend to the Board of Finance that an appropriation of $6,000 be made to have funds available to complete the study. Now that we are a little clearer on where we're going.
Tim, can I see the math? I mean, you totally, I just think I need to see it written out because I really wasn't tracking all the numbers.
Yeah. Let me show you this. The positions are done on a unitized basis, so.
Okay, so this is the proposed fees that we received a few meetings ago.
Yeah.
And it has the compensation benchmarking of $200 a position. Additional surveys will increase costs of the proposal. Job description and update is $150 per position, and then they have travel time at $150.
We're doing everything remotely, so hopefully that.
Do we have a contract with these people?
That is the proposal, yeah.
Well, that's a proposal, but do we have, this is the same thing we saw a few meetings ago. Do we have a contract to review?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know that I have, let me see.
I gotta say, I think I'm where I was a few meetings ago without seeing the specific requirements, is that I think we're going about this backwards. We need to get an HR person, a job description. We need to do the recommendation of what this HR person, I mean, there are new federal laws that were state laws that went into effect October 1st for union employees. We need to address some of this. I'm almost thinking before we do the job description part, much of which we already have, as I mentioned before, we need to get somebody in here that has the skill set to do a gap analysis of what we have versus what we need. And I think that should come first. So I don't think I can justify asking Board of Finance for more money when I'm not sure we're doing it in the right order. And I think we need more than just a proposed fee, for two. Also, we got an email along the way from our finance director that said our job descriptions may be proprietary. So
no, not the job descriptions, the calculations.
Well, she felt there was some question of whether we can release those to a third party. So I think there's a lot of questions that are, I mean, it's good they're being raised, but I think we need to discuss it. And I think maybe we need to have a small group and sit and tear through this so that we're fairly spending the taxpayer dollars here. I don't feel that way right now.
Yeah, I think the job descriptions are ours, and the calculations that the other consultant did could be proprietary. There's been some pressure to get this moving. We can talk to the Board of Finance tomorrow about it, and we can then figure out if there's more steps. But there's been a push to get this done, and we have settled on this firm, and we've actually selected the firm. So I think we need to move very quickly here because they are starting. We wanted to get it done before the end of the year, and if we if we take too much time, that timeline won't work, and so I think we can, we'd have to meet, I would say, this week to try to get it resolved, because we're not meeting for a while in Board of Finance monthly, so if it gets pushed into the next year, things won't work too well.
Either way, we're going to need the money for it. Doesn't mean we're going to spend it. So we got to pay for it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying we may not need an appropriation. I'm just saying before I vote on any appropriation, I'd like to see the reasons for it. And I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing the same fee schedule that we had a few meetings ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's been no additional information. At our last meeting, you said you hadn't even met with this firm yet. Now apparently you have. And we have no contract. Why are we cutting checks with a firm we don't have a contract with?
Yeah.
I mean, I just have a lot of questions. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I think we should make a recommendation and keep things moving. We can do some additional work on it as we speak with finance and so forth, but I just hate to lose momentum and have it slip till November and perhaps later, so.
I'll make a motion that we ask for the recommendation.
Pardon?
I make a motion we ask for the recommendation. We don't have to spend it. We don't have to do anything, but we have it to do when it comes time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's wise. All right. I would second that motion to recommend to the Board of Finance to consider a $6,000 appropriation to augment what we have.
Discussion?
Discussion?
I did not second the motion because I think we need more detail. We need a little bit more process. I don't think it's going to take us, again, I won't be on the board in January, but I don't see, we've had a couple months now to get it together, basically, and we haven't.
No, they've been starting their process a bit, so I think that we should not delay, and we can provide Board of Finance more information and keep going here. Otherwise, it's going to be, some of these firms, their availability is limited after the first quarter, starting at the first quarter, so we have to be sensitive as to that too.
I'm sensitive to the taxpayer. That's my objective here, is to make sure we have the information, that we're spending our tax dollars wisely, and that we feel comfortable when we make any appropriation.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a wise thing. I think the salary and the job descriptions can move parallel to some of these other, the HR thing as well. We can do both. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Do we, let's vote. All in favor?
Okay.
Aye. All right, the second item we have already covered, the Park and Rec. Next item is the repaving of Center Beach Avenue. I think it's been reported that Center Beach Avenue, there was a water main that the Connecticut Water needed to replace. Not the entire length of the street, but practically. So they, at the conclusion of their task, said, we just as soon not do the repaving ourselves. We'd like to give you payment in lieu. There was some arm wrestling, and they provided us with $100,000 for repaving. And I talked with Ed Dante, our public works superintendent, and he said that to do that job, the contractor that he spoke with could do it for $145,000. So the question would be, should we proceed, he would like to do the work before Memorial Day, because obviously things get increasingly busy in the beach area, as opposed to holding off and doing it another season. I believe there are ample funds in the road improvement fund to provide that extra $45,000. If there is a need for additional funds in that account, it could be adjusted during the budget, which would begin on July 1st. So I don't know that we need a motion. I just think that we I think did well to obtain the funds from Connecticut Water, and we should be able to get this task done within the what's in the road improvement account, and make any adjustments as necessary. I think that's basically informational. I think Board of Finance will discuss this tomorrow.
Is there any possibility we could go back to Connecticut Water and ask for $45,000 in additional money? Why is that?
Well, they made a trench down the side of the road, so at best you would get money to do half the road. So they started at 75, and we were able to get them up to 100. So I think that's as good as it gets.
Okay. When was Center Beach paved last?
I don't know. It's not in terrific shape, so.
I was just curious because I know we have a road improvement list when roads are going to get, or in theory, get approved to.
Well, I think part of the problem is if you let it sit the way it is with a temporary pavement over the trench, that's going to make the rest of the road deteriorate pretty quickly, because you have different materials, different ages and stuff, and it'll just start busting up. So Ed wants to do it. We have the dough, and we can, if we had to pave it ourselves, it would be $145,000. Since we have this nice amount to help us, why, it makes great sense to do it now, and it'll be off whatever list it's on.
And does, by doing this now, put any other roads behind schedule, behind our road improvement schedule? If we slot this one in?
I think so. I mean, the contractor does the work. Public Works undoubtedly is around to facilitate and so forth, but pretty much the contractor does, just like Mile Creek. We have to devote some time, labor and so forth, but it's not, the contractor really does the work. And it's a straight shot down there, and getting it done before the season would, we could get it so that it's ready for Memorial Day.
Okay. Thank you.
I might want to add an item to the agenda concerning Mira, which is the company that takes our trash from the Essex transfer station to Hartford and processes it. It's a very integral part of our trash stream. And I can brief you and then tomorrow the Board of Finance on a meeting that occurred very recently with all the towns that called in about what's happening with Mira, which handles around 700,000 tons of refuse per year out of a total Connecticut waste stream of 2.4 million, so it's an appreciable portion. So I solicit a motion to add to new business the Mira, subject of an amendment to the Municipal Service Agreement. MIRA, it's abbreviation, amendment to the Municipal Service Agreement.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think some may know that the Mira, which operates this plant in what's called the South Meadows of Hartford. It's the old CLNP energy plant up there near Brainerd Airport. There are 48 towns that have long-term agreements to dispose of their trash through that trash-to-energy plant. And what is happening is that that plant is quite old, and I was involved with the board of that plant a long time ago, and it was known to be needing repair, and those repairs are big and expensive, and without the help from the state, it just was a losing battle. So the plant will be closing, and that means the 712,000 tons have to go somewhere else. Other facilities in the state handle about 1.3 million tons, but they are quite full and could not accept the MIRA tonnage. So that material will be needed to be trucked or sent by train out of state to other destinations. MIRA needs to ramp up for that, and it will require vendors to receive, transport, and dispose of all the municipalities' trash. And so the MIRA management needs to line up contractors who could do this. And they need the certainty of a fee stream so that the bills can be paid. Now, trash will go to Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and if by train, possibly South Carolina, Alabama. And I think a lot of folks feel that this is not a good way to dispose of our trash. At least with trash to energy, you get energy, and you have ash to deal with, but the energy is a byproduct. So you're also depending upon the continuity of out-of-state landfills to be there. And if they decide they want to increase fees, that hopefully there would be some longer-term contracts so that would put a lid on it. So because the municipal service agreements allow towns to opt out, I think every March they can evaluate whether they will stay or go. They're trying to come up with a plan whereby a town could say, we will stick with it for the remaining 5 years of the contract, and we will have more of a certain price for disposal, or a range of prices. And if a town wanted to opt out, the fee to opt out would be more expensive, and try to keep them in, because you want to keep a critical group of towns in. So the MIRA is, they're trying to have towns consider committing to stay in. So the critical questions would be, is your municipality interested in amending the municipal services agreement by deleting the opt-out disposal fee? That means the towns would need to stay in the deal for the remaining 5 years. Or is your municipality interested in amending the agreement by increasing the opt-out disposal fee levels to the levels that they have forecasted? And if interested, what amount of time will your municipality need to approve and execute the amendment? So it's more or less one or the other. And they're trying to get the towns to respond so that they can start planning what they're going to do. The opt-out, if it were deleted, the cost would be reduced on a scale of $6 to $9 over 5 years than market. And I think that the current pricing for fiscal 23 would be in a range of $114 to $119. And Nicole, do you know what we're paying now? About 110? Something like that, right?
No, I think it's lower.
The what?
I think it's lower.
Lower than 110? Okay. Yeah. So we'll need to kick this around because they're trying to get towns to give an indication of what they are willing to do and somewhat quickly. So I don't think there's any action required by us. It's just trying to sensitize us to the fact that this new arrangement is going to be more expensive. We know this has been coming, and here it is. So this will be a topic tomorrow night at the Board of Finance.
What's our other choices?
You could opt out and try to go somewhere else, but if other places are basically full, I'm not sure that you'd have much of an option. So I don't think there's a list of good options as to what you could do. There may be a couple of towns in Connecticut that still have landfills. I think Manchester may still have a landfill, but they're disappearing, and so it's really a quandary. And everybody wants to just have the truck show up and take their stuff away, and that's the end of it. We do enjoy zero cost to our recycling stream at the present time, and that, I think, Mira would attempt to keep going into the future. So to the extent that we do well with recycling, that can reduce our overall, our average cost of disposing materials.
Is there any discussion on other options besides disposing it with a truck? I mean, at one point we talked about pay as you go. Are there any other things?
Well, those would be local things that you could invoke. Yeah, I mean, you've heard Sustainable talk about trying to get all the composting going. Pay as you throw is very controversial, and we in Lyme don't specifically pay a contractor to do our individual trash. It's in your tax bill. And that has, I think, worked out more favorably than, say, Essex, which does vendors charge the residents, and you can choose from one or more companies. But I think these materials all wind up in a few locations. It's not like there's a wide variety. The Essex transfer station would continue to be a collection point for this new arrangement that Miro is putting together. So we would not have to take it to New Haven or to somewhere else. So that's a help. But it's a very difficult situation, and they're doing the best they can with what they have. And as I say, the DEP is not specifically helping Mira. It's more or less saying the plant's got to close. And that means there's going to be a whole lot of trucks leaving Connecticut, which is really counterproductive, I think, but it seems to be the only solution right now.
What are other towns doing?
Well, the conference call was last week, so I think, if I had to guess, I think probably we're in the deal for 5 years anyway, so I think probably maybe getting rid of the opt-out. I mean, one could scurry around and see what other choices there are, if any. But I think a number of communities are going to say, we'll get rid of the opt-out. Okay. Guess we're going to other business. I have one piece, actually. Roger Davis has been interested in acquiring a piece of property that he abuts in Rogers Lake. And there was another individual who also abutted the parcel that expressed interest. And he asked questions and so forth, but I said, you need to do your due diligence and get back to me because we want to proceed with somebody buying this parcel. And the other individual did not respond by the end of Friday. So I think it's appropriate that we proceed with his proposal, and that would require, I expect, a planning 824 to buy the property, and then if we could get it framed up so that this matter could be presented at a town meeting, the same town meeting that would be for the open space acquisition, that might be pretty efficient. So I'm just reporting that. It's not action required, really. Once we get that, then when we do the town meeting, we could recommend at that point. So that's what I have.
All set.
Had a couple things. Earlier this year, our assistant town clerk was awarded. She had gone through all the classes, and I'm really proud to say that Courtney George is now an official town clerk. She's been through all the certification. And I'm just really proud of her, and I think if you guys see her when you're in town hall, just, tell her, give her an atta girl, because she did this while she's working full-time during COVID. It took 2 years, so it was a lot of work. So I'm really proud of her. And last meeting, last couple, I asked what the situation was with Harry Plout, because he had been racking up bills to the town of Old Lyme. And you had indicated last time that you had something in mind, that if he didn't pay up or didn't do what he was supposed to do, we wouldn't be able to allow him to. I'm not sure what exactly, but certainly not just live off the goodness of the taxpayer of Old Lyme. So I was calling for, wanted to know an update on that.
Well, he paid what was owed, and I think we will have it in writing with him that when he is called with an amount, say, I don't know how frequently the landfill would want this to be reconciled. It could be weekly, whatever the thing is, that if he doesn't get cleared up within an appropriate amount of time, we can specify the number of days, then his privilege would be terminated. So I think that would be, and it would go to probably a COD type of thing, so that as he brought material in, they would have to pay right then and there. I think there are the contractors who do this, and they do it promptly, and so I think we could impress upon them that we're not a bank, and we want it cleared up in a timely manner, and that would be an agreement we would have. And if he didn't want it,
something in writing with him.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's great. This is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and as you know, our cybersecurity policy, we don't have one as of July. And we've known about this since February, that we were going to be without one come July 1st. Our last meeting, I think you shared that you had a couple of people looking into stuff, but this is really scary to the town of Old Lyme. This is how we help mitigate risk, by having these policies in place. We need to get this done. This board should be on this. Where are we at?
I think we are going to have the committee work on this because there are certain prerequisite precautions that have to be in place. If we don't have those, then we need to make sure we do so that an underwriter will cover us. It's not in my scope of knowledge, all this cyber and computers and everything else. So I think the IT committee needs to grab this and talk with our vendor and get what we need so that we can go to an underwriter and say we have all these authentications or whatever else. So I think that's the next step. We have some safeguards, I'm sure.
What?
As to whether they are all that we need, I don't know.
Okay, so I'm just going to make it very clear that this is a dereliction of this board's responsibility by not having a cybersecurity policy in place for this town. Our social security numbers, our tax ID numbers, all of that information is at risk. I wanted to discuss the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis just another time. I found through some of my research, much of which I've shared with this board, different resolutions, different ways different towns have addressed looking at diversity and making sure that there's equity and inclusion in their policy setting. And here's a small town, and I will share this with you if you're interested. Because the small town with lack of diversity creates meaningful equity and inclusion in city services. And this is a small town in Livingston, Montana, home to 7,800 people, only 8.6 residents identifying as Caucasian. So, not unlike us demographically, but they recognized that, especially during COVID, there was room for improvement in addressing, going forward, how they hire, the policies they put in place at the government level to ensure they're looking at things with an equitable lens. I just felt that was really germane to what I've been trying to put up to this board in August 2020. And just to reiterate some of the things I've said in the past, this is something I read to the minutes in April of 21, that I've been bringing this issue to the board, the policy setting board of the town of Old Lyme, because it's a national discussion and one that's having a lot of support in Connecticut. Namely, that health equities have caused ill effects in the mental and physical health of people, and those most hurt have been minorities. And I've been surprised that we can't even have the discussion. That's all that I've asked for. This is a value statement. Someone asked if this has any legal bearing, can't go back. No, we've talked about that too. This is a statement that this board wants to recognize that all the policies that they set will be looked at with an equitable lens. It doesn't have the rule of law. It's a value statement. Even our state rep spoke at a Black Lives Matter meeting, so did Senator Formica. This is, just accepted. But for some reason, we haven't been able to have the discussion at this table. I also just really was hoping that this town could take the lead in the discussion. And if we are so perfect, why don't we discuss it? If we figured it all out, we've got the secret sauce, why don't we share that information? My approach has always been to acknowledge the difficulty of discussing systemic racism, to share related educational information and other resources with this board, to welcome other opinions, other approaches. I still remain hopeful, and maybe with some of the public's help that we heard tonight, that we'll develop some kind of public forum and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Move adjourn.
Okay. 6:36, we're going to do it.
Oh, thank you. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Vehicle. A senior law enforcement official tells CBS News FBI tactical teams are in Port-au-Prince to assist with a hostage-taking situation. Authorities believe the group was kidnapped by the notorious gang known as 400 Mawozo, who often kidnap entire busloads of people for ransom. And yet they are. Organizations like hers are now debating whether they can continue to operate in Haiti or will have to leave behind those they were trying to help. Also tonight, we obtained a phone number for the leader of the 400 Mawozo gang. When we called, a man picked up, but when we identified ourselves as CBS News, the conversation ended. Nora?
Stay safe. Thank you. We want to turn to Georgia now, where the process of picking a jury in the Ahmaud Arbery case is now underway. I was showing with terrifying it was caught on video, remember, as he chased while on a run. Well, CBS's Omar Villafranco reports tonight from Brunswick, Georgia.
Outside the courthouse, protesters demanded justice for Ahmaud Arbery. Prosecutors say Arbery was jogging last February when Travis McMichael, his father Gregory McMichael, and neighbor William Bryant shot and killed him. Defense attorneys say the men thought he was a burglary suspect.
All right, shut up.
1,000 people were sent to jury summons, but the process of whittling that down to 12 jurors and 4 alternates could take as long as 2 weeks. Nora?
Tony Murphy from the